Trump just dropped the hammer on Russia's two biggest oil companies, and Putin did not see this coming. This is the most aggressive move against Moscow in years, and it changes everything for America, Ukraine, and your wallet. Donald Trump just launched the largest sanctions package against Russia since he returned to office, and, folks, this is a complete game-changer. On October 22nd, the Treasury Department announced massive penalties targeting Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's two oil titans that together control nearly half of all Russian oil production. These aren't just any companies. We're talking about the economic engine that's been funding Putin's war machine for over 3 years. Why did Trump do this now? Because Putin refused to negotiate in good faith. The president waited months. He tried diplomacy. He even planned a second summit with Putin in Budapest. But, you know what happened? Trump canceled that meeting just hours before announcing these sanctions. He told reporters in the Oval Office, "It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get." Let me paint you a picture of what we're dealing with here. Rosneft alone is responsible for 6% of global oil production. That's massive. Lukoil is Russia's largest non-state oil company. Together, these two giants export 3.1 million barrels of oil every single day. And now? The United States has frozen all their assets on American soil and banned every U.S. company from doing business with them. Here's the critical detail you need to understand. The Biden administration had the chance to sanction these exact companies back in January. They went after smaller Russian oil firms like Gazprom Neft and Surgutneftgaz, but they deliberately avoided Rosneft and Lukoil. Why? They were terrified of what it would do to global energy prices. They were worried about political blowback if gas prices spiked at the pump. But Trump, he's taking the risk. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called this one of the largest sanctions we have done against the Russian Federation. And he didn't mince words. Given President Putin's refusal to end this senseless war, Treasury is sanctioning Russia's two largest oil companies that fund the Kremlin's war machine. Now, let's talk about what this means for America, because this impacts you directly. First, energy prices. The moment these sanctions were announced, global oil markets reacted immediately. Brent crude jumped above $65 a barrel, posting its steepest two-day gain in over 2 years. A 7% surge. What does that mean for everyday Americans? Potentially higher gas prices in the short term. This is the trade-off Trump is making. Economic pressure on American consumers now in exchange for forcing Russia to the negotiating table and ending a war that's destabilized global security for more than 3 years. Should we be willing to pay a bit more at the pump if it brings peace to Ukraine and weakens Putin's war machine? Comment below with yes or no and tell me why. Second, this fundamentally shifts America's approach to the Ukraine conflict. For months, critics have accused Trump of being too soft on Russia. Remember all the headlines? Trump won't confront Putin. Trump's peace plan is giving Russia everything it wants. Well, those critics just got proven wrong in the most dramatic way possible. Trump tried diplomacy first. He met with Putin in Alaska back in August. He waited for progress. He offered chances for negotiation. But when Putin refused to budge, Trump didn't hesitate to unleash the economic pain. Third, this puts real pressure on Putin's economy. Russia's oil revenue is the lifeblood of their entire war effort. It's how they're buying missiles, paying soldiers, keeping their military-industrial complex running. By targeting Rosneft and Lukoil, Trump is cutting off the cash flow. And here's the thing. The United Kingdom sanctioned these same companies just last week. The European Union approved their 19th sanctions package on Russia the same day as Trump's announcement. This is coordinated Western pressure at a level we haven't seen in this conflict. Does Putin feel the walls closing in? Absolutely. Look at what he did the very same day these sanctions dropped. He ordered drills of Russia's strategic nuclear forces. That's not a coincidence. That's Putin trying to remind the world he still has power. But it's also a sign of desperation. Now, before we go further, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Politics Tribune. We're bringing you the analysis the mainstream media won't give you. Turn on notifications because this story is developing fast. Let me give you some context on timing because it matters. These sanctions came just hours after Russia launched one of its most brutal attacks on Ukraine in months. Russian drones and missiles hit at least 8 Ukrainian cities on October 22nd, killing at least 6 people, including a mother and her 2 young daughters, a 6-month-old baby and a 12-year-old girl. A Russian drone even hit a kindergarten in Kharkiv while children were inside. 1 person was killed, 6 wounded, but miraculously, no children were physically harmed. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been begging for exactly these sanctions for months. He's been telling Trump, telling European leaders, telling anyone who would listen, you want to force Russia to the table? Hit them where it hurts, their oil money. And Trump finally delivered. Here's what makes this even more interesting. Trump told reporters he waited a long time to impose these sanctions. He said, I felt it was time. That shows calculation. Trump wanted to give Putin every opportunity to negotiate. He didn't rush to punishment. He tried the diplomatic route first. But when Putin kept stalling, kept launching deadly attacks, kept refusing to commit to a real peace process, Trump pulled the trigger. And listen to this. Treasury Secretary Bessent specifically said they're prepared to take further action if necessary. That's not just tough talk. That's a warning. If Putin doesn't change course, more sanctions are coming. Trump could go after Russia's banking sector next. He could impose tariffs. He's already said he's going to confront Chinese President Xi Jinping next week at the APEC summit about China's continued purchases of Russian oil. Do you think China will stop buying Russian oil, or will they keep propping up Putin's war machine? Let's address the elephant in the room. Some people will say these sanctions are too little, too late. Others will say they're too aggressive and will hurt American consumers. So let me give you the opposing view fairly. Critics argue that sanctioning Russian oil now, when global energy markets are already volatile, risks driving up prices for American families who are still recovering from inflation. They'll say Trump should have focused on diplomatic solutions rather than economic warfare. They'll point out that China and India weren't included in these sanctions, which means they can keep buying Russian oil and undermining the whole effort. You know what? Those are legitimate concerns. But here's my take as someone who puts America first. Sometimes you have to be willing to accept short-term pain for long-term security. Yes, gas prices might tick up. Yes, this creates economic uncertainty. But what's the alternative? Let Putin continue this grinding, brutal war indefinitely? Let Russia keep exporting millions of barrels of oil per day to fund missile attacks on civilians? That's not acceptable. Trump tried diplomacy. He met with Putin personally. He waited months for progress. And when Putin showed he wasn't serious about peace, Trump responded with strength. That's what American leadership looks like. Here's what to watch in the next 48 hours, because this situation is moving fast. Number 1. Watch oil prices. If they keep climbing past $70 a barrel, you're going to feel it at the pump within a week. Number 2. Watch Putin's response. Will he escalate militarily? Will he offer new concessions? His next move tells us everything about whether these sanctions are working. Number 3. Watch China. Trump meets Xi Jinping next week. If he can pressure China to reduce Russian oil purchases, that multiplies the impact of these sanctions by 10. Number 4. Watch Europe. The EU just approved new sanctions including a ban on Russian liquefied natural gas imports. Are they finally willing to coordinate with America on a unified strategy? Number 5. Watch Trump's next steps. If Putin doesn't budge, does Trump sanction Russian banks next? Does he impose tariffs? How far is he willing to go? This is the moment where Trump's entire Ukraine strategy gets tested. For months, he's been criticized from all sides. Ukraine supporters saying he's too soft, isolationists saying he's too involved. Now he's made his move. He's put real economic pressure on Russia while still keeping the door open to diplomacy. Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. Olga Stefanishina praised these sanctions, saying they came after numerous attempts to give Russia a chance to begin real negotiations to end the war. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who was sitting right there in the Oval Office when Trump announced his decision, said these sanctions boost pressure on Putin to come to the table and negotiate. Think about the bigger picture for a moment. Russia has been fighting this war for over 3 years. They've lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Their economy is weakened. International isolation is crushing them. And now their two biggest revenue sources, the companies that provide nearly half their oil exports, are sanctioned by the United States, the United Kingdom, and soon the entire European Union. Putin bet that the West wouldn't have the stomach for real economic warfare. He bet that leaders like Trump would prioritize cheap gas prices over Ukrainian sovereignty. He bet wrong. This is America reasserting economic dominance on the global stage. This is Trump showing that when diplomacy fails, he's not afraid to use America's economic power as a weapon. And this is exactly the kind of pressure that can change Putin's calculus and bring this war to an end. Will these sanctions work? We'll know soon, but here's what we know right now. Trump has fundamentally shifted his approach to Russia. The days of endless patience are over. The door to diplomacy remains open, but Putin now faces real consequences for his refusal to negotiate. So here's my final question for you, and I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you support Trump's decision to sanction Russia's biggest oil companies, even if it means higher gas prices for Americans in the short term? Or do you think he should have waited longer and tried more diplomatic solutions first? This is Politics Tribune, where we give you the unfiltered truth about what's happening in American politics and foreign policy. If you found this analysis valuable, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be following this story every single day because it's going to define Trump's foreign policy legacy. I'll see you in the next video.
If you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos.